Welcome to the Writer Dojo. Your hosts, Steve Diamond.
Hola.
And Larry Correia.
Bonjour.
Today's episode, Supporter Spectacular, Round 3.
My French is terrible.
Welcome back to the Writer Dojo. We're super glad to have you back with us. Now today, what we're going to do is we are going to have our Supporter Spectacular numero tres. What is it in French, Larry?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
I don't know. I just looked up. I've been trying to say hello different every episode. I had to actually look up a bunch of different ones on the internet.
All right, we have.
Don't be fooled by Steve's numero tres, because Steve actually is perfectly fluent in Spanish and can pass as a native speaker.
I can. I just choose to be gringo sometimes.
You're so gringo.
So today, what we felt like we would do is we have a few questions that came in from supporters. And remember, if you're a supporter, which means you're supporting our gun habits with monthly fees. What this means, and believe me, there's a new gun I need to get. So hey, look, and Larry, I mean that's just a constant state of life for Larry.
Yeah, I just buy a gun a week.
Right. So for the low cost of at minimum 99 cents. Or look, if you're feeling generous, $9.99 a month. You too can support Larry and I, so that with those monthly fees, we can buy one whole bullet each.
Well, we could be like, one of these days, if we get enough subscribers, we could be like Joe Rogan.
That's right.
I don't think there's that many people that read books, let alone that many people who want to write books.
Probably not. Okay, so what we decided to do today is we have a few questions. And kind of like in our last episode, we're going to answer these questions, but we're also going to try to answer them through the lens of what we've done up until now, and if related, how that impacted us with our novel that's coming out shortly on March 1st, Servants of War. We've got a month, a few weeks left until that comes out, and what we really want to have happen, we really want people to be as excited for it as we were when we wrote it. And hopefully you guys will all go out and pre-order it on Amazon. So our first question today is from Brendan Haskins. Brendan Hankins.
Good dude. I was there when he proposed to his wife.
Nice. So Brendan says, and this is a little bit longer, says, so you're a character writer, wrote an awesome protagonist, fleshed out strengths, weaknesses, personality, abilities, network of supporting characters. Sounds like he's referencing specifically a lot of our character episodes that we talked about earlier. He says, now you need something or someone to challenge this character, and you're scratching your head as to what would make that challenge compelling enough to be story-worthy. What questions do you ask yourselves, and what tricks do you utilize when conceptualizing the bad guys, the world-ending event, brisket-burning catastrophe? I take offense to that.
It's never burned
that
a brisket.
Pushes no, I've never burned a brisket. That pushes the heroes on their heels and gives them that challenge.
That's actually an excellent question. That's a really big question too.
So we talked a little bit in one of our episodes about, I want to say it was for about half an episode. We talked about protagonists and antagonists.
Yeah.
And the way of creating them is roughly the same. However, he did go a little bit deeper here, which I like. And it's not just the bad guy, but kind of the layers of bad guy. The idea of big events and catastrophes.
The threat, the challenge. Right. That's a really good question. And the way I think about this, and like we have talked about villains and heroes before, and also the way Brennan's question works here is it kind of presumes that you're starting from, you have your main character.
Sure.
So once again, we talked about anytime you have a show that's named after one character, it's Longmire.
Right.
Luther. It's a show about this one person, and this is like, now what are you going to challenge that person with? So we're starting with that kind of story. So we got a novel. It's about this dude. Mm-hmm. What do we challenge? My first question then, if I have a really cool character like that I want to build a story around, I want to say, what is his strengths and weaknesses? What does he excel at? So I can give opportunities to show why he's cool. Why is this guy so neat? Why is this guy worth following as a protagonist? And then I think of what he sucks at. because no one is perfect. That's why everybody hates, like, they talk about the Mary Sue character, because it's not the self-insert, it's the perfection. You got to have the challenge. Like, what is this person bad at? And then I'm going to come at them from different angles. And so it's got to be something that they can be good at, so they're worthy to fight it. Or if they're challenged, you notice, like, a lot of times there's those disaster movies, and they start some dude, some actor, and the challenge is, like, there's a big tidal wave, or a volcano is erupting, or a ship is sinking, or it could be anything, right? This is the disaster movie.
Mhm.
Usually, you notice, what is that character? He's usually some kind of, like, character that has some sort of skill set.
This relational.
He's got a
Mhm.
relational skill set to the challenge. Not always, I guess, because sometimes you could have the everyman kind of story where it's the average dude has to survive the apocalypse, or survive the zombie, or survive the alien invasion.
Yeah. Oh gosh, you and I watch quite a bit of monster movies, and generally what you see in those shows is you do see some everymen type folks in it. So in those cases, a lot of times what they're good at isn't dealing with the other with the monsters per se, or the monsters themselves, but oftentimes in monster movies, what we notice is that the humans are actually worse than the monsters in
Yeah,
many
okay.
cases, right? That's kind of the dichotomy of
Popular theme.
yeah, it's the dichotomy of who's actually the monster.
Who's the real monster?
Right, of
Yeah,
course.
it's been done a million times.
A million times. And so what you end up seeing is what they're really good at is not the monster itself, but maybe it's dealing with this specific sort of event, or they happen to be The Walking Dead. Okay, it's not a great show.
I've actually never watched it.
Not great.
Yeah.
However, the main character, he's a cop, right? And as time goes on, it's not that him being a cop makes him good at dealing with zombies. It doesn't. In fact, if you've watched the show, then it's obvious that he's not good at dealing with zombies. No one in that show is good at dealing with zombies. Whatever. Anyway, the interesting thing is that the idea is that him having been a cop and having been in law enforcement and things of that nature, it actually makes him a good leader. And so when you look at it from that angle, you say, okay, yeah, I can get that. He can band together with people. He can pull together people, maybe who have skill sets that can deal with zombies or whatever. But then, like you said before, it's, well, what is he bad at? I mean, in the show, basically everything. They're all terrible. So let's use some of our characters from Servants of War, for example.
Well, so one of the things we did there is, like, what they're good at. So the main hero is this guy named Valerian. Because he is by nature an honest man. I mean, he is a good man in a not good world. He's kind of wired to be a good dude. So one of his antagonists we made was this really nasty secret policeman who was the opposite of that. So we start with the hero. We start with the guy who's honest. Start with the guy who has basic. He has decency. He has integrity. He's just kind of a good dude, right? So as an antagonist, we're going to put him against a guy that is a lying manipulator, or another one. So the overall big bad guy. So our main character is young and relatively powerless. He's a new guy. He's a cog in a machine. So we're going to put in the chancellor of this empire, who is an all-powerful, all-knowing wizard who has his own spy agency, and so you got the dichotomy. So if I'm writing a character that's not powerful, I'm going to put him against the powerful. If he's honest, I'm going to put him against the dishonest. It's kind of like you flip things, but then also you got to make sure that this character has the skills and the abilities to somehow survive this. So don't go too overboard where you're fighting Dracula riding a Godzilla every time, because then how do your characters survive?
I don't know. Does King Kong have a wooden stake?
Well, no. In the last one, King Kong had a magic axe made out of a Godzilla scale.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
I guess that worked. Yeah, I don't know about that.
It was like a +5 Vorpal Godzilla axe. I actually enjoyed that movie. I know it was really dumb. It was like This is one of those I definitely check my brain at the door.
Oh, for sure. Okay, so we talk about characters, but one of the things that Brendan talks about is world-ending, like events or
events.
big looming catastrophes.
Yeah.
So I mean, you've written those. You've written those more than a
gosh,
couple
yeah.
times.
I actually have to be careful because I can't end every book with a world-threatening event because otherwise world-threatening events become commonplace.
Mhm.
So that's one thing is I try to take some books are world-threatening, other books are just, personally threatening or city-threatening, or one time I'll just threaten your kid,
Right.
On the world-threatening events, it's going to
Yeah.
go back to, so if I'm starting with a character, if I'm starting with a protagonist in mind, I'm going to think what makes this guy uniquely suited to rise to the occasion for whatever the horrible event is. And then based upon whatever makes him interesting, I'm going to get that kind of event.
Okay.
Maybe he is a disgraced astronaut who can save the moon. I don't know. I haven't seen, there's that moon movie coming out where the moon's crashing. It looks horrible, okay, but all I know from watching the preview is like they go and get some disgraced astronaut, right?
Right.
I know everything about this movie.
Yeah.
Based upon a 30-second commercial. But so you start with obviously, like, so if you're writing a book where your main guy is a tornado chaser, then I'm assuming that something in this book is tornado related.
Mhm.
If I'm writing about a volcanologist, I'm assuming a volcano is about to erupt. You see what I'm saying? So it's going to be contextual. Now you have some characters who are just good at everything.
Mhm.
And that is not good.
That's hard because I don't know.
Well, it can be pulled off with sufficient. It's like Dirk Pitt, Clive Cussler.
Mhm.
Dirk Pitt's amazing at everything.
He is good at everything
He's good. However,
except keeping his girlfriends alive.
oh no, okay. To be fair, yeah, he is the the last dude anybody would ever want to date. Because I don't know, he goes through like 200 girlfriends. But the thing is, in that universe, the way it works, he's a treasure hunter. Okay, with every skill in the universe. Got a lot of successful novels though, because there will never be some sort of underwater mystery, as the looming threat, or it might be a leftover nuclear bomb from World War II is going to be used to cause a deep sea earthquake or whatever the hell it is. It's something uniquely suited that this dude can be the guy to rise to the occasion. James Bond.
James Bond.
Or you can have interchangeable, threats and menaces. And, oh no, they built a giant space station with a laser on it. Well, luckily we have a dude who's really good at seducing women and beating guys up.
That means he's perfectly suited to take down the laser on the moon or whatever.
Well, I mean, think about the movie Armageddon. And I'm sure that one they did because I can't remember any of the characters, so that obviously doesn't go with Brennan's.
Bruce Willis.
I know, but it doesn't go with Brennan's thing about having a character first. But in that case, they had the premise they're going to like blow up an asteroid. So instead of getting like professional astronauts, let's get all these oil roughnecks and fly them up into space to blow up the asteroid. Okay, realistic? Probably not.
Well, no. Well, no.
But so your threat is going to be based upon whatever you personally, as the creator, think is cool is going to be a good match with that character. And sometimes you have the threat first. And then you add the character. I mean, if the movie is called Volcano, then obviously the volcano existed before they came up with the hero.
Yeah, I've
Tommy Lee Jones or Pierce Brosnan. Those movies came out at the same time.
Tommy Lee Jones was Volcano, and Pierce Brosnan was Dante's Peak.
Yeah, see, you remember very good. I could not remember.
Yep, I remember. I want to say I saw Volcano in the theater, dude.
Wow.
I know.
Dang.
I know.
You were apparently the only one.
Yep, it was. Well, I mean, it was me and my dad, so there were at least two of us that saw it in the theater.
Nice.
Yeah, I like this question because I think Brennan's head's in the right spot. I think that I like where his head is going, and that's he says, look, I've got this really cool character. I like this character, but how do I make their life suck? That's when I write horror. That's the first question that pops in my head, and that's okay. How am I going to screw with my characters?
Yeah.
Now, a lot of horror tends to have the whole victim fiction thing. And so in a lot of those stories, the characters, rather than being good at something, they're just not good at anything. And they're just, wet tissue paper waiting to be ripped in half.
Like we said before, the difference, what separates why Monster Hunter is not horror versus the way it's urban fantasy It's the strength of the protagonist, the capability of the protagonists. Horror is like, creeping dread where you're going to get eaten no matter what. And like Monster Hunter is like, you're going to get eaten no matter what, but by golly, you're going to take this thing with you.
And so what I like is the idea that Brandon is looking at this and saying, okay, what can I bring into this that is actually a challenge? Like he says at the end, that pushes the heroes on their heels and gives them a challenge. And I think the implication there, at least I hope the implication there, is that Brennan actually wants to write something that is a challenge for the heroes. Because I think that's one of the big faults that we see. Whether or not the character is good or bad at something, they overcome the problem too quickly. I mean, that's basically every Marvel movie.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a common thing because they were working in a 2-hour format, and the first act is usually introducing the character or how they got to that point. Yeah, and then so they just kind of solve the problem. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
So I guess there for you, Brendan, the big thing is to do a lot of what Larry was talking about. So what I suggest is, I don't know, maybe in a little Excel spreadsheet or something, because we're accountants. List out what these characters are kind of in a column, or their traits in a column, their strengths, their weaknesses. And then right next to it, write down what some of the opposite effects of those are. And then say, okay, what kind of cool character or what kind of cool villain, I guess, or what kind of crazy event could capture a good chunk of these negatives that would impact the character in such a way. And maybe use that as a starting spot.
Yeah. Depending on the kind of thing you're writing, it could be anything from like personal tragedy. It could be, crime. It could be, loss. It could be, big explosions. There's a million possibilities depending on the kind of genre you're writing.
Yep. All right. So we're going to go on our break, and when we come back, we're going to answer a couple more questions that we got for you. We'll be right back.
Julie LaPlante's life of day job drudgery is shattered when she's abducted by a menacing stranger. Waking in a cheap motel room, Julie makes a terrifying discovery. There's a bomb strapped to her chest, and the timer is counting down. Julie has 24 hours to travel 1,000 miles, where a hidden code that disarms the device waits. No car, no money, no phone, no way to contact anyone for help. Julie's been left with nothing but the clothes on her back and a single deadly object, a loaded gun. As the countdown ticks towards certain death, Julie sets out on a journey that will not only test her to the core, but plunge her into a dark conspiracy that could forever alter the fabric of society itself. Waypoint, a novel by Matthew Howe. It's available on Amazon.com. Pick up your copy today.
And welcome back. All right, we've got kind of a shorter question, and then a longer question that'll occupy the latter half of this episode, Larry. So this first question is from, I think it's Michaela. I hope that's how that's pronounced. If not, I'm so sorry, supporter Michaela probably. Says, my question for Writer Dojo. Both of you said that you're fans of fan fictions, and yeah, we are.
Yeah.
In fact, I mean, I've been very open that's how I became a better writer.
I think it's a good tool. I haven't really done it myself. Well, except a little bit, I guess, for fun. But yeah.
Sure, but I mean,
screwing around.
Yeah. Says, was there a time for both? Let me see. Was there a time you both were curious, brave, or masochistic enough to search for fan work, fan fictions, fan arts, etc., of your own books? She says, they exist. I found them.
Oh, yeah. There's...
So I have never looked. I didn't think I rated worthy enough to look. I doubt that there is of mine. But
I have a ton.
I'm sure there is.
Hundreds. In fact, there's a whole Facebook group that is just MHI fan fiction.
Oh, you know what? I think I have seen some of these.
Yeah, and there's it's been on web forums, it's been all over the internet, and they're fanfiction.net. Now, let me tell you this, though. For legal reasons, a creator of a universe will never, ever, ever admit to reading any fan fiction for legal reasons. This is for our own protection, and it's for one big reason. Because there have been cases where someone will do fan fiction, and in the old days they used to like just mail their script to Star Trek or whatever, and those would get returned unopened.
Yeah.
And it's because of this reason. Because let's say that you wrote some fan fiction, and in that fan fiction you decided to have the main character of one of my series do a certain thing. Then let's say that a year from now a book comes out where I had the main character do that certain thing. It could just be a total a fluke. It was just like, coincidence, or something that was like logically set up, and that fan understood that it was logically set up for that to happen. For whatever the reason, that fan is like, well, that's my idea.
Yeah.
The creator stole my idea.
Yeah, that's a problem.
It is a problem. It's a real problem. So I, as a creator of an owner of an IP, can never read fan fiction in that IP. Now, when I do like an anthology, it's
Sure.
different, because in that case, I am actually asking for submissions from specific people, and we are contracted so that if they come up with a cool idea, but they're writing it for me on my universe and I'm paying them, I own that idea. That's
Yep.
my idea from now on.
Yep.
I can do whatever I want with that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I wrote for your Monster Hunter series. And it was understood. I mean, one, there was all sorts of rules involved. You know, I remember you going through the story pretty, with a fine tooth comb. And I know that you were comparing it against, other stories, that were being written, so they weren't the same. Ideas that you had for the future of the series, to make sure that I wasn't accidentally going to screw you up later on.
Yeah, so when you're buying stuff for your IP, it's a very meticulous process. And there could be some really good fan fiction out there, but it's one of those things that I can't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
No, and I'm
That
the same
said,
mindset.
I do encourage you guys to go out and if you are enjoying writing MHI stories or whatever else, Grim Noir, whatever, I think that's fantastic, and I encourage you guys, and I hope you have a lot of fun doing it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I hope it makes you better writers. It's good practice.
Well, shoot, I mean, that's how I got better.
Also, don't be afraid, guys, if you write fan fiction to practice and get better. If you come up with a really good story in somebody else's universe, and you think it's a really good story that you could do something, don't contact the author. That's not going to go anywhere, right? And actually, that really sucks for us too, because we get contacted by people all the time. We're like, I got this great story for you. It's like, that's great, dude. Maybe talk to me when my next time I'm doing submissions for an anthology. But in the meantime, it's a pain in my butt, and it kind of sucks. And you and 10,000 other people have asked me the same thing, and I got to tell you all no, and it sucks, right? And I get to be a bad person every time, but I can't just take every story off the internet. And some people are really demanding, and that makes me want to work with them less in the future.
And likewise, don't approach said author's friends and ask them if you would like to, give Larry this story.
Yeah, that's not
that
cool either.
totally fits within the Monster Hunter universe.
Yeah, don't do that to my wife either, and people have done that.
People have done that to me more than a few times.
Oh, I wish it's just, don't do that, guys. We will do another episode entirely about writing for other people's IPs, because that's a whole different thing. You got to know about it. I've done it both ways.
Yeah, so have I.
So we'll talk about that more. But on fan fiction, go out, have fun, enjoy yourself. And all I was going to say is, if you write something really good and you want to try to publish it, don't try to sell it to the creator. Scrub the serial numbers off it, change the universe, change the characters into new, unique characters that belong to you, and change the setting, whatever you need to do to make it so it's not plagiarized. It's no longer, stealing somebody else's universe. And once you've created your own thing, go sell that. Go try to sell that to a publisher, because now it's no longer fan fiction. It's real fiction. It's your fiction.
And we've done that.
We have done that. We're about to
about to publish that book.
We're about to get paid for that. So that's one of the things, guys, just, be careful of that. So,
yeah. All right. Okay. Last question. And this is from Scott. He says, I know this podcast is about hearing your advice and insights, but I'm curious to know whose advice and insights you sought as a new writer. Very good question. What resources, courses, books, websites, etc., did you rely on when you were first honing your craft and trying to become better as a writer? And then Scott says, I've recently reread Writing to the Point by some guy's name I can't pronounce. Algis Budries. Sorry. English is my first language, but sometimes it's not.
You can't tell.
I know. And I also took the Free Riders of the Future workshop run by Dave Farland and some of those folks. What else would you recommend? This is a really, really good question.
And interesting timing too.
And very
because-
interesting timing.
Yeah, Dave Farland. For those guys, those of you who don't know, Dave Farland. His real name is Dave Wolverton. Dave Farland was his pen name. He's a good friend of ours. I've known Dave for many years. He passed away recently.
Yeah, just a couple weeks ago.
And great guy. Going to be missed because honestly, I'll tell you, not getting personal, but just like from a writer perspective, that dude did more to uplift and help other new writers than probably anybody else alive or anybody else in modern times. You got to understand, Dave. It was interesting after Dave died to see the outpouring from hundreds of authors.
And a lot of it was, Dave took the time to sit down and read my story and tell me and give me encouragement or give me pointers.
Yeah, it wasn't
or whatever.
vague. It wasn't vague stuff. It was specifics. If I will tell you, like my personal thing with
Lots
him,
of published authors now.
Oh, hugely published authors too. David actually one time said he had like of all the years of all the people he taught, he had like 200 authors or 200 of his students become bestsellers.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's insane because this guy did it for most of his life, and he was an amazing teacher. Okay, so my Dave story when I was starting, so this actually does answer that question too. When I was starting out, my very first book tour I ever went on was because this is before I was famous at all. I just had the one book. Bain wasn't paying for this, but Dave Wolverton liked to team up with other writers, and they would go around America and do book signings and that kind of thing. And Dave was supposed to go with this other relatively new writer, some dude named Brandon Sanderson. I guess he did okay afterwards. And it was Dave, Brandon, and Lee Modisette were supposed to go together. I think Lee had something come up or got sick. I think Lee got sick. Brandon had something come up. And so in the last minute, Dave Wolverton had all these book signings scheduled and no people to go with. So he had just met me and John Brown, who were both new guys at the time with one book out, and he grabbed us. He's like, hey, you guys want to go on book tour? Because I got all these appointments around America. And so we did. And so my very first book tour was driving, I want to say it was a Cadillac. It might have been something else, but Dave had this giant car.
I think it was a Caddy.
It was this tuna boat of a car. It was like 18 feet wide. It was seriously, it was a 10-foot wide car.
So you actually fit in it.
Oh, I was very comfortable. And I wound up driving most of the time and around Southern California.
Oh, yeah.
And so I remember the worst part is that we went to a Barnes & Noble that was in a shopping mall, so it had an indoor parking lot. And I had to park this thing between a Maserati and I'm trying to remember what the other car was, but there was two expensive Italian cars in an indoor parking garage. And the only space by the Barnes & Noble, I'm trying to fit this tuna barge in between the two, right? Without scratching the door of a $200,000 Italian car. Yeah, super fun. But no, Dave was definitely one of those voices that uplifted people and helped innumerable writers.
Oh my gosh, so many. Unfortunately, I never got to hang out with Dave in that sort of context. I was always on panels with him. Ate lunch and stuff with him here and there at various conventions. But I didn't get to know him as well as a lot of other people to my detriment. But I went to a number of signings back in ye olden bookstore times when I was that guy. I remember part of that tour when he was with it was him and Brandon and Lee, and I think I just quit the bookstore or I was about to. I think I was about to. And because I was working at two different bookstores at that time, that one down in Provo and then the one up in Salt Lake too. And so I was working at both stores. And at the Provo one, they all three showed up. And so I went down there to say hey, because I knew Brandon at the time. And that was when I first really met Lee as well.
Great guy.
And Lee is a fountain of knowledge as well.
Yeah, I really like Lee a lot.
And I remember speaking with with Dave quite a bit at that signing because I already knew Brandon. I didn't need to talk to that guy. But I spoke with Dave quite a bit, and the thing about him is he was always so nice, so courteous. and just genuinely excited. He kind of had that whole kind of like almost hippie attitude going. Like he was kind of like, yeah, well, and all kind of peace and love and stuff like that. Great guy.
He was pretty chill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for meeting people like that, I've always tried to be that guy as well. Because I figure if I can be half as helpful and half as approachable as those guys, then the writing community is a better spot. Because there's plenty of douchebags out there.
Yeah. Well, I know I am one of them. I mean, I
depends on which layer we're talking about.
I help people. I help people that are decent, and then I have no mercy upon others. So, no.
But in terms of like other resources, apart from like Dave himself was an immense resource.
He was probably the best there's ever been.
I personally don't really do like writer resources, like how to write books.
One of the reasons we started this podcast was specifically because we were disgruntled with the state of a lot of the other stuff out there. Because a lot of the writing stuff tended to be either stuff that we would not necessarily agree with, or it tended to be rigged a certain direction.
Yeah.
And the most awful thing that's happened to writing resources in recent years has been the wokeification of writing resources, where everything in the universe was through the prism of politics, which is just nauseating.
Yeah.
So there, as far as resources that are out there, my gosh.
Take a look at some of your local universities, and you might luck out. For example, I mean, I took classes from Brandon.
Yeah. I mean, it depends, because that's going to be a crapshoot too.
Yeah, it just depends. And I know that you've taught some various classes.
I've taught college creative writing classes, and which is funny because I got rated at the end of this quarter or the end of semester when the students do their little cards. I smoked the actual professors, and every student was like, "Wow, this was so much better than the real college creative writing class."
Well,
This is way better, because I actually,
you'd actually done it.
Yeah, and so I've never been invited back.
Shocker.
I did too good of a job. No, but the thing is, because the problem you run into is that a lot of college creative writing classes are taught by professors who haven't necessarily published anything outside of maybe like literary journals that are read by literally tens of people, if you count the editorial staff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's people who've maybe published a book 20 years ago.
Now, I think if you find, outside of lucking out and having a pretty decent professor roundabouts, if you happen to have a pretty good local convention, I think you can go to those local conventions and sit in on some panels and learn some good stuff.
Well,
Make some good connections.
I've praised our local con LTUE for like 13 years, and but this last year they went really stupid with the vaccinations and crap. And so I'm just like, you know what, I'm done.
They went all papers, please on this.
They did. And I don't feel like I don't need to be a good German to assure the other Germans I have no Jews hidden in my attic. Right. You know what I mean? And I'm sorry. It's just, my private medical business it's none of your damn business, And so I said, no, I'm out. I'm done. But the thing is, I'm not going to say it's not a good resource. It's a good resource, but I wasn't going to jump through hoops.
But you can find, depending on where you're at. I mean, I've been to one up in Montana. I know that there's a few in Colorado that are pretty good.
20 books to 50K in Las Vegas.
The Vegas one.
Very, very, it's aimed at indie writers. Mm-hmm. But it's very, very business oriented. It's very pragmatic, because it's all indie writers, so they're making it or breaking it. So there's not a lot of artsy fartsy navel gazing in here, because they're not. These people are their own publishers, so there's no like, I'm going to depend on my publisher to do all the hard stuff, where I can go be artistic.
Right.
They don't have time for that. And so actually, I recommend that one. That was I'm going to go to that again and teach some classes. I really enjoy. I was impressed by that one.
Oh, maybe I'll go to that one this year.
I mean, I actually really did like it. Yeah. And then I don't know, as far as
LibertyCon I haven't been to LibertyCon myself.
LibertyCon is super fun. I don't know how much like learning happens at LibertyCon versus partying and drinking and just hanging out, and I love that one. DragonCon, same thing.
DragonCon's a party con.
party con. I don't know how much you actually like would learn as far as spending your money as a writer and trying to be good. There's a lot of how to write books out there, but I once again,
I
I
don't
just
know.
depend on how much you agree with that particular writer.
I mean, a how to write writer's book, just it feels like it's trying to be one size fits all.
Yeah, I
And
thought about actually compiling a bunch of my blog posts and doing a how to write
Sure.
book, but it's very specific. It's going to be like, it's like that book, Make Love the Bruce Campbell Way. It's like how to write books Larry Correia way. But everybody talks about like the Stephen King on writing book.
Sure. There's a Terry Brooks one.
Dean Koontz had one. I actually like the Dean Koontz one better than the Stephen King one. It's interesting though, because but then there's other writers that there's writers I think are terrible writers that have writing books, and there's some guys I know that like they've made a business out of writing like how to write books, but their actual writing sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, but they're selling these how to write books, and I'm like, I wouldn't take this guy's advice on anything because he's an idiot.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think
Caveat emptor, I guess.
Ugh.
Buyer beware.
Yeah. So Scott, I think the answer to your question is, I mean, it kind of depends on you and how you learn, I think.
I would say this. Have an open mind, listen to everything, discard what you do not think fits.
Except us, because we're always right.
Oh yeah, except for WrtierDojo, obviously, because we're never incorrect.
We're
or
never
biased.
wrong.
The thing is, though, I see a lot of writing advice out there, and that's why we do the little segments of the show where we will take bad writing advice and mock it.
Yeah.
Because there's more bad writing advice out there in the world than there is good writing advice.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today. We hope that you supporters out here who got the shout outs today, that our answers satisfied you. Of course, look, if you have more questions, like we always say, that's one of the perks of being a supporter. That and supporting my barbecue smoked meat habit. So if you want to support us, become a supporter. Anywhere from 99 cents to $10 a month, whatever you feel comfortable with. We appreciate every cent of it. And Larry's son definitely appreciates when I smoke barbecue for him.
It's so good.
It is. So that's
actually,
it.
I have one son that's addicted to brisket now because of
That's
you.
right. Man, that's expensive these days. Ugh. Anyway, so that's it from us for today. So once again, this is the WrtierDojo. Take it easy.
WrtierDojo is Steve Diamond and Larry Correia. Produced by Jack Wilder and Bear and Hare Studios. Theme song, Word Mercenaries by Craig Nybo. New episodes come out every Wednesday wherever you stream your content. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can help support us by going to anchor.fm/WrtierDojo, by leaving a 5-star rating and review, and by helping to spread the word. To advertise on the WrtierDojo, email ads@WrtierDojo.com. All questions and comments can be emailed to questions@WrtierDojo.com.
Wow, this was so much better than the real college creative writing class.